Now, but you indicate that somehow or another your officials missed the fact that we, the recipient of the contribution, had reached a bank covenant, that its entire board had resigned, and presumably it missed the fact that the organization and its affiliates had somehow accumulated $40 million of real estate. Even though it is not a real estate business. Who in the public service ought to have performed and reported on this due diligence?
That ought assumes that there was a failure of duty, and I'm not prepared to.
Well, the Finance Committee has witnessed Shugart. And it looks like he's not stonewalling, but he's there to defend his decision. Apparently, one of his decisions to have we. Anywho, watch this.
And ministers themselves. You'll appreciate that I won't go into detail, Chair, but ministers themselves at cabinet discussion raised issues about the capacity of the We Charity, about how it would reach out to underrepresented students to ensure reach right across the country, and various other matters, all of which would be reflected in the contribution agreement.
Mr. Shugart, who has the authority to waive cabinet confidence? Is it just the cabinet themselves?
The convention is that the Secretary to the Cabinet has the authority to waive cabinet confidences. There is jurisprudence on this. As was clear from the SNC-Lavalin case, the Prime Minister himself, of course, can opt to waive cabinet confidence, but traditionally, that duty falls to the clerk, and there is jurisprudence on the criteria that the clerk has to follow on this.
Okay, thank you. So you talked about the standard in a conflict of interest being one of the criteria being disclosure. So did you know that members of the Prime Minister's family had been the beneficiaries or recipients of more than $250,000 up to $300,000 from we?
I did not.
Okay. Would you be prepared to submit to the committee the media monitoring for the days following noted public appearances by Mrs. Margaret Trudeau and Mr. Alexandre Trudeau?
I see no reason why we would not support the committee that way.
Okay. Can you confirm that Rachel Wernick is at the point in her career where her next promotion would have to be approved directly by the Prime Minister?
If she were promoted to a governor in council position, that would be the case. But I can tell you that a public servant moving to another job within the public service, not involving a governor and council appointment, is often treated as a promotion.
Okay.
So not necessarily.
So you've said that, of course, public servants do their due diligence of groups getting large government contributions. In fact, you've said that this government contribution agreement was so big that in spite of the fact that the Prime Minister or Finance Minister could have any range of involvement, or their family members could have any range of involvement with an organization, but it's so big that they would have to be involved, So with a deal that's this big, how was it missed that there were breached bank covenants and a board responsible for the organization in shambles, in a word, and there were all kinds of real estate transactions that are now in the public domain that are questionable at best for an organization of this type? How could in that due diligence could something like that be missed?
That is entirely reasonable line of inquiry, of course, Chair. What I have said to the committee is that, to the best of my knowledge, those issues were not raised. What I also said, I repeat, that in the focus with respect to this contribution agreement had to do with the capacity of the organization effectively to deliver the program. That is what the due diligence related to. That is what the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff raised in saying this is on a scale that we should make sure that the organization can really deliver this. And that is what the subsequent focus on the through the contribution agreement concerned itself with. As to the other issues, I'm afraid I do not have the knowledge of the organization or recent events related to the organization. I can simply tell the committee that those issues were not on the table to the best of my knowledge at the time.
Last question, Mr. Baird.
It'll have to be multi-part, Mr. Chair.
Keep it short.
Okay, who in the PMO was aware of the details of the program before the April 22nd announcement? And did the Prime Minister know that the program was being awarded to we before that April 22nd announcement?
No, he did not. The initial announcement was explicitly, if I remember correctly, included the Prime Minister indicating that further details would follow, that there would have to be further development of the program. This was the announcement by the Prime Minister that many of the gaps affecting students that had arisen as a result of the pandemic, the government fully intended to address those, and that there would be a program along these lines. At that point, the public service and presumably We Charity went to work in a vigorous way to design the program in detail, which was then brought forward in proposals by the minister to the COVID committee and later ratified by cabinet.
Okay.
House of Commons is later today, and at the end of this, check it out. We have Pierre Poilievre going down on him again, drilling down on him, I should say.
The program, options, the design features, etc.
But do you recall if he himself was personally participating, or was it his his executive assistant that was participating?
In the meetings to which I refer, Chair, I'm speaking about the Prime Minister.
So the Prime Minister was physically participating in these meetings, in these discussions with regards to We Charities. Is that what you're saying?
At that stage of the development, for example, when the recommendation was fully formed that we were recommending the We Charity as the third-party partner, yes, the Prime Minister was personally involved, of course.
Okay. So when you received the offer of service from We Charity, were there any checks with regards to the financial health, the financial health of this organization? So you wanted to give a $900 million contract. I imagine that you checked and vetted this organization. It wasn't done haphazardly.
As I say in response to Mr. Poilievre's question, Chair, of course there would be scrutiny of any organization and its ability to deliver a program if it was envisaged that it would be the vehicle for that task. issues of the financial.
Yes, but I'm talking about the specific cases. This specific case, was there a check, a credit check, a financial check on the ability of the financial situation of We Charity? And if so, who checked on this? Could you give us some specific things with regards to We Charity? I know in general you do this, but I'm talking about this case. Was it done in this case?
Well, as I indicated, Chair, no financial flags were raised through this process about the We Charity. To the best of my knowledge, officials did not engage in detailed scrutiny of the financial affairs of the organization. I stand to be corrected by subsequent testimony, but to the best of my knowledge, there were no detailed investigations of We Charity's financial affairs.
Mr. Fortin, last question.
Merci, Monsieur Shugart.
Monsieur Shugart, thank you. Was the Prime Minister or his executive assistant asking for any type of scrutiny with regards to the financial solvability of We Charities and their ability to manage this program? Either the Prime Minister or his executive assistant. Was this asked?
The Prime Minister's Chief of Staff, given the scale of the program, did make the point, which was accepted by everyone, that due diligence and care needed to be exercised with regard to We Charity. Ms. Telford was not referring to financial integrity of the organization. Those issues, to the best of my knowledge, were not raised.
Okay. Now, as we heard from testimony last week from Ms. Warnick, the We proposal arrived the same day that the Prime Minister actually announced the program. And Ms. Warnick gave in her testimony very clearly, in reply to questions, the statement that this public service was not aware the details of the program and actually learned about it the same day. So when did you become aware specifically of the proposal from We and the timeline that we need as part of this Finance Committee study? I would appreciate, I think we all would appreciate getting that as soon as possible. When did you first become aware of the We proposal?
Well, personally, Chair, I'd have to say for the committee that it was not during that time at all that I personally was aware of the proposal from We Charity. Colleagues were, so I will answer the question in the context of the Privy Council office as a whole, if that is acceptable to Mr. Julian. My understanding is that it would have been around April 19th, 20th, but I can confirm this for the committee in the timeline, that is when the proposal would have been received by various officials in the government.
Sorry, are we talking about the first proposal or the second proposal? The second proposal from Ms. Warnick's testimony was received on April 22nd.
Okay, there was an earlier proposal, I understand, which came in early April, if I remember correctly. It related to an idea, a program that in the end was not funded.
Yes,
recommendation.
I'm sorry. I'm going to have to move on. When was it the involvement of We and all of the finances involved, including the $43 million that we would have received? When was that brought to Cabinet, and what discussions were held around recusal? Were you aware of the financial connection between the finance minister's family and the Prime Minister's family and We?
There were two Cabinet discussions, one by the COVID committee, and then secondly, ratification at Cabinet near the end of May. I'm not. We were not aware of any connection of the finance minister. The Prime Minister's involvement with the charity over a long period of time, of course, was in the public domain. And I must say that, of course, one of the standard means of dealing with conflict of interest, or the appearance of conflict of interest, is disclosure. So, in a sense, the Prime Minister's involvement being in the public domain, I must say that it did not particularly cross my mind that there was anything that needed to be disclosed, because this was a well-known fact at the time. And I would also say, Chair, that given the importance of the issue to the government's overall efforts to deal with the impacts of the pandemic, and given the scale of the contribution, up to 900 million, I would emphasize for the committee, up to, I do not see a way that the Prime Minister or the Finance Minister responsible for public funds could not have had involvement in the policy development and in the approval of finances on this scale.
And we'll give you a little more time. That was a long answer, but I thought it needed to be articulated.
Well, thank you. I mean, thanks, Mr. Chair. We've heard that there was no financial flags, and I presume no evaluation of WE's financial circumstances. I gather as well from previous questions that there was no examination of the liability issues that Volunteer Canada raised with us last week. So there are tons of questions I think that folks want to ask on this. Now, you'll recall, Mr. Shugart, under the SNC-Lavalin controversy, the Ethics Commissioner said that he was unable to fully discharge the investigatory duties conferred upon me because you refused to provide information that the Ethics Commissioner had asked for. My question this time is, will you fully cooperate with the Ethics Commissioner or any request that the Ethics Commissioner makes for documentation and for answers on this controversy?
Within the bounds of my responsibility, Chair, of course I will cooperate with the Ethics Commissioner, as I would assert I did a year ago in relation to the previous issue. The committee will recall that the government itself had given a waiver of many of the cabinet confidences. I indicated to the Ethics Commissioner that in my judgment, there had been no demonstration of a greater public interest to weigh the cabinet confidences, and invited him to follow up with specific requirements that he might have, and the Ethics Commissioner engaged in no further follow-up. So I will absolutely cooperate with the Ethics Commissioner within the bounds of my responsibilities as Secretary to the Cabinet.
Last question, Peter, if you have a short one.
The short one is, are you aware that any other organizations were contacted? Volunteer Canada said that they repeatedly tried to speak with ministries about this. Were any other organizations even contacted to talk about this possible program and how to implement it? And was there any discussion around the alternative, which was, of course, to invest more resources in Canada's summer jobs, which has been cruelly underfunded at this time of pandemic?
I do know that early in the development of policy, meetings were held with a range of nonprofit organizations, voluntary organizations, and so on. We Charity was one of those consulted. we can provide you with the full list of organizations that were consulted. So I would say at the front end of this, it was a wide open process. It is true there was no call for proposals. It is true that there was no competitive process. I mentioned earlier that PCO raised the question of the department of whether there should be or could be a competitive process. The answer was no, with reasons, and we were colleagues at PCO were satisfied that was the case. Beyond that, Chair, I'm not aware of specific interactions of groups that sought the opportunity, but it was clear from my review of the file that ESDC, in cooperation with finance, examined the parameters of the program, the features that were desirable, and the conclusion was that We Charity had the necessary experience to meet the need.
Okay, we are going to end it there. We will certainly have time for 4 more questions.
Well, it looks like there is more to find, and every time they have a new person witness, there's more questions. I didn't think there could be more questions, but here's Pierre getting a coupled answers. Check it out.
Do you commit to releasing all of the communications between PMO staff and PCO with regards to the Canada Student Service Grant and the We Charity Contribution Agreement?
I believe the committee should have access to as much of this information as possible.
That would be a yes.
Yes.
You will proactively submit that to the committee
Yes.
clerk. Thank you very much for that. Secondly, could you commit that you do the same for all communications from the finance minister's office to PCO and to the finance department?
I will do that.
Thank you. Next, in previous testimony from Ms. Warnick, I asked her who was it that told her to reach out to We in order to deliver this program. She gave the name of a Finance Canada official, Michelle Kovacevic, who apparently convened a meeting across departments. Were you aware of this mid-April meeting?
I wasn't, Chair. Whether officials at PCO would have been aware at that point of the development, I do not know.
Do you know it now? Do you know if there were any PCO officials in attendance at that meeting?
I can verify, but I don't believe so. But
can you commit to releasing the names of all the participants in the meeting and finding out if there are any notes from the meeting and releasing those to the committee as well?
We'll include that in what we provide.
Thank you. And if the meeting took place by Zoom, can you check if there is a recording of that meeting and commit to releasing that recording to our committee as well?
If there is such a thing, we can provide all of that. My intention, Chair, is to be as expansive as possible in the information we provide to the committee.
Thank you very much. Now, the next question I have is back to this issue of due diligence. You confirmed that the public service does perform due diligence when it awards large-scale contribution agreements. This was a $1 billion contribution agreement. Now, but you indicate that somehow or another your officials missed the fact that we, the recipient of the contribution, had reached a bank covenant, that its entire board had resigned, and presumably it missed the fact that the organization and its affiliates had somehow accumulated $40 million of real estate. Even though it is not a real estate business. Who in the public service ought to have performed and reported on this due diligence?
That ought assumes that there was a failure of duty, and I'm not prepared to accept that assertion. I do not know what information was available to whom on the broader dealings of the organization, which I understand is a complex organization. I can only repeat for the committee chair that
Right.
the due diligence of the public service related to the ability
To
of
deliver.
We Charity to deliver this program.
Right, and that would doing that due diligence would have required reading the financial statements, correct?
If that were relevant to their ability to deliver this program, that may be the case.
Well, you'd have to read the financial statements to know if the organization had the financial capacity to administer a program of this scale. Did anyone in the public service read the financial statements of We before allegedly recommending that it be given delivery of this program?
Well, I think the answer to that question is encompassed within my earlier answer. I don't have any further information.
Right, because if they had read the financial statements, they would have found that We was in breach of its bank covenants, and that would have been right there staring the official in the face. It seems hard to believe that no one would have alerted the government to these facts about the We organization. Finally, did the Prime Minister indicate to you when you discussed this matter, this We contract, this We contribution agreement with him, that whether or not he had spoken to any member of We or its affiliates or its representatives before the proposal went to Cabinet?
There is absolutely no evidence, no suggestion in anything that I have reviewed that would suggest that the Prime Minister had any interaction with the We Charity in relation to this program. None whatsoever.
What about his staff members? What about his staff members?
Same issue as far as I know, Chair.